appears that there is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building. And as fire crews are descending on this area, it does not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
We just saw another plane coming in from the side.
You did. That was out of
Yes, and that's the second explosion. You could see the plane come in just from the right-hand side of the screen. So this looks like it is some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center that is underway in downtown.
All right, folks, welcome aboard. 9/11, 2014, 13 years ago today. That took place in New York, of course, also Pennsylvania and Washington. We're going to be joined by Deborah Burlingame, whose brother was the pilot of American Airlines Flight 77, which crashed into the Pentagon. Breaking news on the front of our war with ISIS. John Kerry telling CNN that we are not at war with ISIS. Go figure. I watched the president yesterday, and I would have thought we were at war, but I guess we're not. He calls it a very significant counter-terror operation. But oh, don't use that word war. No, we want to destroy ISIS, but we're not at war with them. Folks, mind-boggling, bizarre, incoherent. You call it what you will, but I just report what they say. All right, folks, and we're going to be joined by Deborah Burlingame. We spoke with her earlier, but first we started with CNN breaking into their programming back 13 years ago.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. All
right, folks, 13 years ago. Just harder and harder to believe as I look at my son who's about to turn 15, though. It's real. Joining us now is my friend, and I always say this to her, she's my friend, unfortunately, because if 9/11 didn't happen, I never would have known Deborah Burlingame, co-founder of 9/11 Families for a Safe and Strong America and Keep America Safe, and sister of Charles Chick Burlingame, the pilot of Flight 77, American Airlines Flight 77, which hit the Pentagon. Hello, Deborah.
Hi, Steve.
I got to ask you this: when you hear, those that report we just played, or watch, if you do, any of the news reports as it was happening on that day, 13 years out now, what do you feel?
I feel like I was a different person back then. I had no idea what was going on. It was such a nightmare, a living nightmare, and I was clueless as to what had happened, and it took me a long time. But now I just feel so sad for what we went through, and I look forward more. I see those images now in the context of what is happening now, and I'm very focused on what is happening now.
And as the years go by, you ask this question whenever somebody loses somebody, does it get easier? And of course, it's got to be easier today than it was when it happened, or on year one or year two. But still, I know that your beloved brother is always on your mind, and I always say he's smiling down from heaven upon you and all the wonderful things and important things you've done for this country since 9/11. But does time heal it to some extent?
Oh, it absolutely does. And that's a message that I think is very important for people to know when they've had a catastrophic loss. In fact, right after when we went into Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, I would write to the families of fallen soldiers. And that was one of my big messages. You will never forget him. He will always be a part of you. And time is the great healer. It's absolutely true.
And so much of your work has been to make us safer and to recognize the problem for what it is, radical Islamic fundamentalism, and who did to us what they did to us, and educate the public and make sure we're not politically correct. how do you feel, not your efforts necessarily, your efforts have been above and beyond, but how do you feel the results of your efforts and everybody else's like-minded efforts have bared out to this point?
Well, I think we've had some success. I think it's been, even when we haven't gotten exactly what we wanted, I mean, we still have Washington that refuses to name the enemy, and a cultural elite, and that includes our academic institutions, our media, that are educational institutions, including not just college and universities, but secondary schools, that won't allow us to have a national conversation about this ideology that is political Islam. But I think it's very important that we don't give up and continue to strive to push back against that kind of political correctness, and really suicidal. It's quite suicidal for us to even begin to try and cope with organizations like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the dozens and dozens of Islamic militia and groups in this global movement to establish a caliphate and destroy the West. I think it's very important for us to simply, I will go to my grave fighting this, and there will be some successes. My eye is really on the future, Steve. On today of all days, today is a day I do look back about specifically on 9/11 and think about the people we lost that day and all the wonderful people that I've met as a result of that tragedy. But every other day of the year, I'm looking forward. I am worried about our children and our grandchildren. And that is a fight that we must win. And it is a generational fight. So successes really can't be measured in these skirmishes here and now. It's a much, much longer, bigger fight than that.
Absolutely. And when you hear, maybe not from our president, but when you hear from his administration that, you know, and from senators and people on intelligence committees who say we're less safe today than we were before 9/11 because of the threat that's out there. When you hear them say that the various members of the administration and of the Senate and the House, that there very well could be ISIS fighters and cells here already, just poised. I mean, that's got to be very, very, I mean, it's frightening to all of us, but it's got to be very frightening and discouraging for you.
I already knew that we're less safe today. I already know that they're here. I'm actually happy. Maybe that's not the right word, but I feel a sense of relief to hear them say that, because that's what our leadership in Washington, they need to be leaders, and they need to wake up the American people and sound the alarm. So, but they're inconsistent. I mean, you have our Senate Intelligence Committee in the midst of all of this chaos that's going on in the Middle East and Asia with these Islamist movement, poised to release a 6,000-page report basically slamming the CIA again over the enhanced interrogation program. And the fact of the matter is, we are starved now for human intelligence because this administration shut down our interrogation program. So they're really inconsistent. And that's one of the reasons we have to be out there to hold their feet to the fire, to basically hold them accountable. You know, they're demanding intelligence from CIA. At the same time, they're demoralizing them, and they're basically telling them, don't be creative, don't be aggressive, be risk averse, and know that you may have to hire a lawyer someday for the things you do to protect us. You may have to hire a lawyer tomorrow for the things you do to protect us today. That's very scary to me. And those are the kinds of things that I feel compelled, and in my group, 9/11 Families, to come out and hold them accountable for doing. The politicization of our national security effort is shameful, frankly. And we have to go out there and say it. And, you know, I don't like to have to go out there and pound on our leadership today when we should be remembering those we lost, and remembering, the incredibly wonderful response on the part of this country that day.
Well, Deborah, I do want to give you the opportunity. We have a minute and a half left, or a little less. Just tell folks about your brother. I always try to do that when we talk.
Chick was a Navy fighter pilot for 8 years. He was a reservist for 17 years. He was a carrier-based fighter pilot. He loved his country, loved the Navy. He was the oldest of 4 kids. Wonderful human being, loved by his colleagues, great prankster, and he would be devastated at what happened to his passengers and crew that day. And he would want us to fight the fight and end these people and end this movement.
Well, he certainly is getting that from his sister, and you know that, and I know that. And again, I am so proud to know you. Always have been. I regret that I know you. You know I mean that in a good way. And just keep fighting, and I know you will until your last breath, in an effort to keep us safe and to make sure America understands what the threat is. And Deborah, great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Best to you, Steve.
Thank you. Deborah Burlingame, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful, wonderful woman. And I really mean it. I mean, I believe there's a heaven, and I believe her brother every day is smiling at everything she does for this nation. We'll be back with more of the show. Don't go away.